All right. Good morning, everyone. I am Crystal Henkle. I am part of the team here at Synchro, and welcome to this awesome fireside chat that we've got for you today. And I, I love Andy and Troy's background. My fire is not flickering, but it's there. But first of all, I just want to thank everyone for hanging out with us today. I know it's kind of morning for us. It might be your afternoon or evening or even into your night. So we know your time is valuable. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We've got some fun stuff. Just a little bit of context. We're going to talk a little bit about how awesome this year has been. It's been a crazy year. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some interesting things around the world and things going on, but hey, we have had a great year, and we'd like to talk about some things that we've done. We're going to give you kind of some backstories of thought processes and how we got from point A to point Z. And then we're going to look a little bit into the future. So to start, though, I would love to introduce both Angie and Troy and allow them to kind of give us a little bit of information about themselves. And for those of you that don't know, what they do for Synchro and kind of their journey before Synchro and up to now. So Andy, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Well, hello, Synchro people, and judging by the amount of people that are here in the webinar, hello to all you future Synchro people too. I'm Andy. I'm the Senior Product Manager here at Synchro. My background is a bit strange, primarily because as of about 6 or 7 years ago, I didn't even know what an RMM or a MSP even was. My background is consulting, and I've consulted for some of the largest hardware and software companies in the world. Going back maybe 7 years ago, I was approached by a major player in the MSP space, and they were asking if I did consulting for RMMs and PSAs, and I felt kind of super dumb because I had no idea what that even meant. So my style of consulting had always focused exclusively on the customer first and the product second, and I had assumed that that same philosophy would translate when I had signed this deal, and it didn't. Even though they gave me like a limitless amount of MSP data and metrics, and they gave me carte blanche to call and discuss anything I wanted with their subset of MSPs, I never felt like that was enough information to really connect me with the customer, with the MSP. I heard conflicting commentary everywhere I went, and it didn't really make a lot of sense to me from a business standpoint. So as crazy as this sounds, I kind of felt like the only way I could better consult for this segment of the MSP space was to open an MSP myself. So that's what I did. So I kind of threw out everything I read, everything I was told, and just largely started from scratch. And I was in a unique position of not caring if I lost money because it was an investment in knowledge versus a profit style investment. I really just wanted that knowledge. So I really went after a lot of things, whether I was qualified or not. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the best tech, and I bet 3/4 of you in this webinar are infinitely better than I am. Troy specifically can run circles around me. The difference was that I was very good at selling, and that made a lot of difference. So again, I went after everybody, small businesses, massive offices, retailers, residential. It didn't matter. If they had a computer, I was selling to them. And I learned very quickly what worked, what didn't, and most importantly, why. So I had no trouble trying something, even if I knew it was going to fail, so I could gain that knowledge. So I quickly learned that this business, surprisingly, wasn't about who's the best tech. It was about who's the best salesperson. And sometimes prospect clients would come to me with competing offers while I was bidding for them. And they contained things I didn't even know what they were, and I certainly didn't know how to do. But because I could sell, I was able to take some of those customers away from them. So what I do is I ultimately started a sales-driven MSP, and that's what made sense in my mind. And long story short, we grew to about 10 techs. We went on to consult for hundreds and hundreds of MSPs before I sold that a couple of years ago. And through the normal course of consulting, lo and behold, I meet Synchro. And I kind of took one look at what they had, and I fell in love with it. It was a disruptive product. It was disruptive pricing. They were built from like the ground up, literally from the ground up. And I love companies like this. And I wanted nothing more than to consult for them. It was my bread and butter. I love this kind of stuff. And so I met with them, and surprisingly to me, I almost fell immediately in love with their team. They cared about the product, they cared about their customers, and they actually kind of cared about each other, which is pretty unique in the industry as a whole. So I'm kind of used to working with absolute killers. So this was kind of a humbling experience for me. And anyhow, we closed the deal pretty quickly, and I kind of found myself wanting to do more and more that was even beyond what I had agreed to do at my own expense. And eventually I started treating the product like it was my own. And ultimately, we just sat down and talked, and it made a lot of sense for me personally to leave this high-flying consulting life with 100 hours a week and the things that went along with that, to settle down with something that I truly love. And Synchro ultimately became that vehicle. And I'm very grateful to the Syncro team that they were happy to have me, and I'm very, very happy, equally happy to be part of the team. So that's kind of my journey from beginning to end and how I got here.
Awesome. Thank you. Take it away, Troy.
We're happy to have you too, Andy. We joked that after Andy's first on-site, his heart grew 2 sizes.
We don't talk about that though.
Okay, so thanks for having me. Happy to be here. I put on my fanciest red holiday t-shirt for this webinar. Let's see. I usually fly through like a 30-second version, but I'll do slightly longer version of my like backstory. It probably resembles a lot of tech people. Starting with, I've just always been into technology. I love technology. I was into like computers from my childhood on, playing video games, modifying video games. I remember like in Rainbow Six, all the weapons were in like text files, and you could, modify rate of fire and stuff by editing some text file, just into computers, into poking around with them. Loved the internet. As soon as I could get on AOL, I was all over the internet. So fast forward a bit to early 20s, was like between work, had done some tech support, had been at Microsoft for a little bit. My dad was like, hey, you should start a computer repair business. Let me loan you $10,000 to like get a van that you can do repairs out of. And I did computer repair for a few years, like kind of door to door, going to people's homes, did that whole thing for a while. Through the course of doing that, started doing more small business, grew up, skills, eventually doing servers. I'd get like a gig as like a, part-time director of IT for a year here or there. So that was kind of my journey to ultimately meeting Desiree and then building up a couple computer retail stores with her. We had 3 locations in the area. And then from that, just realizing I was enjoying more and more of the harder problems, the business networks, and started, someone walked into one of my stores and mentioned Kaseya to me, and I got really excited and went and pitched all my business clients. It was like 10 of my clients, I was doing like $1,000 a month plus with in break fix. And I went and pitched every single one of them during the trial period of Kaseya. Like, hey, let's do, an all you can eat plan. And that started my managed service, I guess, wing of that business. And my wife and I did managed services primarily for a number of years after that. This is back in, when is this? I don't know, over 10 years ago. From there, started running into like the sales stuff that Andy loves and is so good at. Started running into like problematic negotiations with some of the bigger clients. Had a client that was like over 1,000 users, endpoints, and they were always bullying us, cutting the price. And I couldn't figure out what to do. And one, actually, it was like over a Christmas break. They told us they were going to cut our price in half or drop us. And we were so stressed out. Desiree was off researching like, what else can we do in technology that's like a more fun business? And she decided it was programming. So she took me to a meetup for Ruby on Rails and a meetup for like build an Android app. And I kind of fell in love with, I had tried programming before in college or whatever, but never stuck. I tried C and thought programming is hard. And then after trying Ruby, like, okay, programming's easy. This language is good. I like it. So the first practice app was what became Repair Shopper. It was management software for the break fix repair shop because we desperately wanted one system that did the ticket and the invoice and then a follow-up email. And this did not exist. So it was literally that. That was it. It was marketer and ticketing and invoicing. And I think the rest is history from there. We've built this into like a real software business with thousands of users. Joined forces with Repair Tech, built a cool RMM, built Synchro. So we've been doing Synchro now for a number of years. I think that's the full story.
That's awesome. I love it. I love hearing the background, and I echo what Andy says, that, you know, this company is amazing. The people are phenomenal. And one thing that, you know, sticks with me is that we really do care about this space. We really do care about you as MSPs. We want to make your lives easier. We want to build you awesome things. We want you to make a ton of money. And, you know, I think that's what makes us, which is very fun for me. I love working here. It's been the best decision I've made. It's almost been 4 years, and I'm just as happy and happier every day. But I'll not get into the mushy stuff. I thought what would be kind of neat to talk about is starting with a few of, you know, the larger features we've built over the year. I thought it would be neat to kind of like break those down just a little bit. And I'm going to start with the chat feature, because one of the things that I love is that, you know, even in, you know, when I talk about chat in a webinar or something like that, I'll be the first to say I'm not an MSP. So when we talk about, you know, we build these features with the MSP in mind, and it's like a chat like you're not going to find out there. It's built specifically for you guys. I would love for, you know, whoever, Andy or Troy, kind of talk a little bit further of what that actually means. What makes this chat specifically for an MSP?
Yeah, I can take this one. Chat was kind of my baby. It's something that I wanted to see in Synchro for a long time. It's something I always wanted as an MSP because I always found myself trying to shoehorn a solution. And as everybody knows, that kind of blows in the long run, no matter how much time you kind of throw at something like that. It did make me a ton of money, particularly with hourly clients that I really wanted to move on to contracts. It was basically just very easy for them to get in touch with me right from their desktop. It wasn't as impersonal as an email. It didn't fall in a black hole if they texted me. The more they were able to contact me direct from their desktop, the easier upselling these folks into a contract became, because they expected a better level of service and were willing to pay for it. So we looked hard at what MSPs were using today. And if, for those of you that don't know me, I say a lot of bad words. I don't mince words. It just sucked, at least for MSPs. Like, it was all hot garbage. If you look at remote access tools, the best you're going to get is a little crappy, you know, text box with no history, no management. If you looked at other RMMs, there's only a couple that actually even attempted chat, and they worked more like a phone call where somebody was expected to be live on both ends. And for anyone who is a hardcore MSP in this webinar, you know, like, you're always running around with like a, you know, chicken with your head cut off. So honestly, when the hell does it ever happen where you're sitting there wondering what to do and somebody wants to live chat with you? It just doesn't work that way. So we did want this to work a lot more like a text message where there's no presumption of an immediate response. So the message should persist even while it's waiting to be answered by a tech, whether that's 5 minutes or 5 hours. So most chat apps are designed with a customer to technician focus in mind exclusively. And as you all know, that's not how MSPs work. So we instead built it in a two-way fashion where a tech could initiate a chat with their customer. So it's like, hey, I need to do something quick. Is it cool if I hop on? Yes. It's a very personal transaction, but it happens within seconds. There's no emails and black holes and things of that nature. So then we said, hey, we want to build in proper management. So we added the ability to escalate chats to other techs. So I'll say better techs, but you want to say tier 1, tier 2, however that is. If you encounter an issue that you can't resolve, it's easy to pass it on to someone that can. Sorry, my dog's in here going crazy. Sorry about that. So anyhow, we wanted to take that ability to escalate chats, and we took that to another level where we allowed an intake person, like if you want to say secretary or somebody overseeing chats, and they could actively distribute them if they wanted to handle that way as well. And then most importantly, I thought back to when I had a couple of VIP clients, and by VIP, I'm talking about like the golden goose ones. And for those of you lucky enough to have one or two of those, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. These chats needed to come to me without exception. So we built in the ability to assign text right from the tray icon policy. So every time a chat came in from a particular customer, it was coming right to me because that's how I wanted to configure and set this up. And then we built a whole array of permissions behind that to ensure that that was possible. And nobody would even know that chat came in except for me. So for those of you that are now, depending on your size, you might just starting to be dabbling in sales, or you might have gone to the point where you have like a dedicated salesperson or staff. I wanted to build an archive to chat history so you could go back through those chats and look for sales opportunities. And you'll be surprised what customers actually reveal through the normal course of a support case, but you're so focused on, I have to fix this problem so I can move on to the next problem. It's often kind of lost in the nuance. So we built that in too for your sales folks. So from start to finish, Troy and I really wanted to build a chat product that was focused on like one subset of customer, and that's the MSP. And that's why what we built and what you'll see in our chat product is like nothing that's ever existed in the industry before, because it was built specifically with you in mind and nobody else. And that's kind of the long and the short of our thought process when we whiteboarded it to what we ultimately delivered and what we have today.
Cool. Yeah, I want to add a slightly different piece of the puzzle. Crystal started out saying, like, we're going to talk about how awesome 2020 has been. If you remember back, actually, like, if you think about it at all, besides Synchro, 2020 has been a mess, a real big mess. But back in March, when pandemic was first blowing up, we were having like daily kind of war rooms. Like, what do we do? How can we help? How can we like show we're like responsive and here to support folks? And it wasn't the right time for chat. It wasn't the next thing being demanded, like just generally, but in the face of pandemic, it became like perfect timing. Everyone's transitioning to work from home. People don't know how to do it. People are going to be all over the place. Who knows if they're going to be in the office or the home or whatever. Like, chat just felt like, okay, this is a better thing to do now for people. Maybe it helps with a couple conversations, and we can do it kind of out of order. It maybe didn't need to happen for like another year. We've got other important things we should be doing in the ticketing system and elsewhere, but it felt like the right thing to do at the time to kind of help folks out. Hopefully it has. Maybe it has. We tried.
That's awesome. Yes, thank you for adding that in there too. I think another one, and it's funny, even in the Q&A, finally getting a voice or a face to the voice of the release videos, because one of the things I was going to bring up right now is the report builder, the executive report builder that we released. You know, one of the things I watch these videos too. It helps me train up on everything new that we're releasing. And one of the lines was, instead of building a static report, we went back to the drawing board and built something that was truly different and that was going to truly be helpful for MSPs. So again, can you kind of elaborate what that meant? What does that mean?
Yeah, so you kind of hit the nail on the head with the static reporting. I'm very honest about what I think is awesome and what needs work in Synchro, and reporting is something that came up time and time again for folks saying, look, we need better reporting. And what we found is that no matter how many reports we built, it never seemed to like get exactly what folks wanted. We solved a problem here, didn't solve a problem over here. And it kind of came to the point where we could build 1 million reports, and no doubt tomorrow we'd be asked to build 1 million more. So we went back to the drawing board, as Crystal said, and we really said, look, let's start with something that every MSP uses and is kind of the core of your customer-facing reporting capabilities, and that was the executive summary report. We looked at a lot of different ones, like SolarWinds was okay. A couple others were not okay. A couple others looked pretty, but didn't have the data you wanted. And it was the same thing. We could build this super nice graphical and pretty report, but if you can't really put what you want on it and remove what you don't, it's not very effective and you're not going to use it. And more importantly, you're not going to use it for all of your customers. Whenever you use something for a portion, it becomes that much less valuable. So we said, cool, we have all these metrics. Why don't we take a bunch of different metrics, put them into blocks that you can customize how they display? Do I want it to be a total raw quantity, a percentage? And now we have like 20 or 25 different modules that you can throw up there, move it and customize it any way you like and build whatever you want. So if you want to even show the same block 3 times with different time periods to show a trend, you can do that. If you want to put a little text blurb above it and say, hey, this is exactly what this is showing you, you can do that too. If you want to have stuff on there about, this is all the places that we can improve in 2021, like you have 15 assets that are below these minimum thresholds or don't have a supported operating system. Let's work on this. It's completely customizable. And our intention, and I guess I might be getting ahead of myself with stuff we're going to do in 2021, but is not to really end there, but that's where we wanted to start. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be adding in like list blocks. So if you want to show a subset of assets, a subset of tickets, and then we're going to be taking existing reporting things, which are often just a table, and we're going to be building them into this too. So it will turn into a full-blown report builder. Now, you're always going to need some static reports that are boring, but like profit and loss, things like that, they just are what they are and you need them. But everything else, we're going to let you customize ad nauseum. And lo and behold, as we're working through this, we're like, hey, our report looks very similarly to our dashboard, which I'm not a particularly a big fan of either. It's static, it's fixed. I can't necessarily remove things and put things on there that are important to me. So we're going to move that technology to dashboards eventually as well and make that as customizable as this report. So we heard you guys loud and clear. We have gotten nothing but awesome feedback on this. We even went through around with the community where we're like, cool, we know this is awesome. I want it to be perfect. And so we did an entire version 1.1 of this feature with just community feedback, which really this kind of stuff doesn't happen with other RMM platforms where it's just like direct one-to-one. We picked maybe 12 or 13 things. We've developed maybe 9 or 10 of them. And I think we're like on the last 3 that we expect to be out in a couple weeks. And now it's just getting to the point where we're almost out of like really awesome requests and we're ready to just move on and make the rest of reporting awesome. So this is another big one for us.
Awesome. Yeah. And like you're saying, I think the feedback has been really great. And I like this feedback from Aaron that he's really psyched to see where reporting is going. What we have right now outside of this new report is it helps the MSP see kind of track what they've got going on, but not necessarily customer facing or being able to show their customers value. And this is the direction we're headed, which is great. And Aaron's definitely happy to see that. All right, so let's see. I mean, it's up to you. I kind of wanted to give kind of like maybe a halfway mark, just let everyone know. We're going to go through kind of a few other things. We do have the Q&A up. So if you see me looking over to a different screen, that's what I'm doing. I'm just kind of monitoring that. So we're tracking some questions that are coming in and we will save some time at the end for some great Q&A. I thought that what we could do now, as you know, we do not have a published roadmap, but I think that it might be kind of a good time to possibly just give a little bit of a glimpse into what's on the way, and talk about maybe the reason why these things are on the way and a little bit context. So whoever wants to kind of hop in there, feel free.
Sure, I can take that one. Instead of just rattling off features, I guess I'll start with the general concept of where we see Synchro going in the future. And this answer may shock and surprise you. And I'll be honest, I kind of hope that it does. We are going to be extremely dedicated to 2 things specifically. The first one is developing product that earns you back more time. And this is something that we at Synchro, we're quickly becoming famous for. If you look at our billing system as one example, it's a major testament to this fact, where you can dynamically count for anything like employees with custom field values, assets, asset safe searches, AV licenses. And if you do like our Pax8 integration, you can even bill for dynamic counts of Office 365 licenses. So You take all that, you dynamically count it every time a recurring invoice runs, it bills accordingly. You put a credit card on the invoice, and now like I'm going to sleep. I don't care how many licenses anybody has or how much storage they're using for backups, whatever it is, it's all going to be calculated, billed, sent to the customer, and I literally have to do nothing. That's like the very definition of earning you back more time and how we're planning to build out all of the features that we do going forward. The second half of that is, what do you do with all this extra time that we're going to be earning you? And we're going to be engaging MSPs with sales tools. So we want you to reinvest this time into selling. In order to grow, you have to close more deals. It's that simple. And it doesn't matter if you're a one-tech MSP or you're even just break-fix starting off, or you're a 50-person MSP. You don't grow without new deals. So I don't want to get too into the weeds, but as a quick, I can give you a couple of quick examples of things that we're going to be doing. So if I said to all of you, hey, how much does your customer cost you to procure on average? How many of you would honestly raise your hand and be like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about? Or I have some idea, but I really don't know how to answer that question. And if you can't answer that question, how do you know how to market, why to market, what is working and why, and what type of marketing is getting you that target demographic that you're going after? How would you know where to best spend your money that Synchro is now saving you? So we're going to be building all sorts of campaign tracking metrics. So you're going to know exactly what your customer cost is to procure, and you don't have to figure it out because we're going to tell you. You don't have to know what your most profitable marketing vehicle is because we're going to tell you that too. This kind of thing is the basis for becoming a sales-driven MSP. And the second example that would kind of go along with that would be cold customer tracking. And again, I think a lot of smaller MSPs may not even be sure what that is entirely, but as you begin to really sell, the core focus initially remains on closing new deals. But you may not be realizing that you often have an untapped resource of existing customers that are willing to pay more if you know how to sell back into them. So we're going to be having a bunch of configurable metrics to determine when a customer might be getting cold. And that refers to the relationship between the customer and MSP, and that it might be in danger of breaking down. So we're all crazy busy, and it's hard to keep track, especially if you have like hundreds of customers that you may have done hourly work for, but not super frequently. So if you have a few customers where you haven't been contacted them, or they haven't contacted you in the past 3 to 6 months, say, hey, maybe they lost your business card. Maybe they have a problem that they've been sitting on for months and they just never got around to calling you. Or maybe they're calling a competitor as we speak. And the same is true for contract customers. If you promise them 20 hours a month and you don't have the time to realize that, oh, geez, I've only spent half that time in the past 3 months, that customer might be wondering if it's time to look elsewhere when it comes up for that contract renewal. And if not, at best, you should expect a hard negotiation, when renewal time comes around. comes around. And another, I guess the last example would be proper customer segmentation for your sales folks. You want to make sure that you're capturing the right data when you're having a new customer onboarding. So we're going to create customer types, kind of like asset types, where you could say, hey, this is a residential customer, and I don't need all static IPs and this kind of stuff because it doesn't apply here. And vice versa, if I go have a retail customer or some subset that might be unique to you, I probably have a different set of criteria I need to onboard with. And more importantly, once I have my customers segmented, I can properly sell to them. So we're going to be beefing up Mailer as an example, which is your ability to take any subset, a customer asset in any way you see fit, and put them onto marketing campaigns. And we have that now in a light version of it, and we're going to be beefing that up in the future to do things like drip campaigns and things of that nature. And all of the things I'm talking about are keys to raising your average customer spend and closing more deals. And that's largely what we're going to be committed to helping you all do through 2021. There's definitely a lot of product things there as well. I don't really want to go too deep into the when and the exactly what, but like an obvious example would be like policy inheritance, or some people call that cascading policies. Like that's something that we know all folks can use, and it's kind of a requirement to be able to properly manage customers, especially ones that are very complex and confusing, where it's a ton of policies and it just becomes a bit of a difficult harangue to manage that properly. So there's going to be a lot of neat things like that too. But again, the core focus is getting you all time, and then allowing you to sell with that newly found time.
I want to tease a little bit. I love the philosophy and background, Andy, but people ask about Mac all the time. I think it's probably ripe for a little bit of a teaser. We've been basically just not satisfied with the architecture of the current Mac beta, and I don't know how else to say it, but it needed a rewrite. It has been under rewrite, and we are in the home stretch of getting a rewrite ready to beta with some folks. And I'm pretty convinced Q1 could have a pretty exciting announcement around the Mac agent. I don't know how much more detail to get into, but it didn't have feature parity. We'd be pretty excited if it did or got close to it. It's still Q1 feels like a ways out, even though it's like at our door. But I'm pretty excited to have a Mac agent that everyone is excited about.
Yes. I think a lot of folks are excited for sure. There's one kind of aspect that I thought, and this isn't feature related. This is more of like, you kind of heard the background of where Andy comes from. You've heard the background of Troy's journey to Synchro. I think that it would be worth kind of talking about what's next, just in regards to who we are as a company and what our intentions are. And, you know, I think that it's really great when you have these concrete examples of how we show, for example, how we're community driven. I don't know how many of you in this webinar are part of our Facebook group, but we're releasing features rapidly based upon what you all are asking for. We have a whole section now, this community driven development track. And I know Andy can speak more to that, but I think there's even more on the way with this community as our main focus. I think it'd be neat to touch on that.
Yeah, so one thing that always bugged me as an MSP was I felt like I would always get 90% of the way there with anything I wanted to build, do, or add. And I was never able to get over the finish line. And it was always something stupid. It was like, oh, dude, if you just did this one little thing, this would change the face of my business. So with that in mind, we started this community-driven development track where on our Facebook group, and this happens a couple times a month, people can put up their favorite quality of life feature requests, and we'll pick 2 of our favorites and we'll just throw them right into development. We made a special development queue for those. And usually within 2 or 3 weeks, you start to see them roll out. And we do maybe 3 or 4 of these features every single month. And then we've been expanding it, like I talked about with the executive summary report. We did a whole iteration of it just on community feedback. And we really do love building stuff that folks ask for. So one of the cool things with when we released SNMP was we said, hey, we know a lot of people are just going to be getting into SNMP. It's going to be new and somewhat complicated for them because SNMP is this old ancient architecture, but it's still useful. So you might have this great recipe. You might have like 50 OIDs that you want to monitor, and somebody else may not have that information. So we said, hey, how cool would it be if you could just take a link really quick and send it to them, and now they could replicate everything that you're doing. And people really like that, and that kind of started to take off. And we started thinking, wow, it'd be really cool if we could do that with other things. Even the reporting that we're talking about, if I have the sickest customizable executive summary report, I would like to see what other people are doing, because I want to know if they're doing something better than me. If somebody's making more money than me, well, damn it, I'm going to change my processes so I can make more money than them. And I like having that community inspired information. So we're going to be adding this kind of community sharing to a ton of areas in the platform. And we're also going to be doing it with expanded community libraries. So we have obviously the script community library, which a lot of folks use and submit to now. We're definitely going to be moving that into reporting, definitely moving into things probably like ticket automations, probably automated remediation, even though some of that may be specific, like specific scripts and things probably won't carry over. But anywhere where we can have like a community of just awesome stuff that our users build, because I have to be honest, like I've worked with a lot of companies in the past and our users are just sick in like a good way where they'll sit on the Facebook group, and if you ask a question, especially as a new user, you'll have like 40 answers in like 10 minutes. It's crazy. And they're all good. It's not just like, yeah, go read a book or go Google it. Like, people want to help each other. So we really want to foster that by adding as much of this built in natively into the platform as humanly possible. So I think that's something that I think folks can and probably should get pretty excited about.
Yes, and not just like that library copied around to some other modules, but some big enhancements coming that'll make it more usable, easier to use.
Yeah, for instance,
Yeah.
one of the things I guess we can talk about is we're gonna, right now it's a community library of like 4 million script, whatever it is. It's not 4 million, but it's a billion scripts, and it is kind of hard to sift through. And part of that comes from somebody is awesome enough to write this really cool script, and then somebody else is awesome enough to kind of iterate on that. And now you have like 4 versions of it, where one of them is probably the best version, but now you're looking through 4 different ones. So we're going to start tracking, instead of it's like, hey, 50 people click this one and that's how it ranks, we're actually going to rank it by usage. So even though this one might have, 500 whatever imports, downloads, however you want to say it, if this other one starts becoming more frequently used, we're going to track the amount of people physically using it. So if somebody removes it and says, I don't want to use this script anymore, or this report, whatever it is, and they replace it with another one, that one then gains in ranking. So we're going to change it so like the first 50 or 100 results are just going to be ranked by the most popular things that folks are using. And then you can search for anything else. So it'll make a much cleaner environment. You can find what you're wanting much easier. And when you guys are discussing this on Reddit or Facebook or wherever your preferred community is, you'll be able to take anything from the community library, click a link to it, share it with any other Synchro user and be like, hey, this is the one I'm talking about from the library. You click it and it's imported in one click into your Synchro interface.
Awesome. And I thought I this will kind of answer a few things in the Q&A too. Since we're talking about community, I think it's worth mentioning, there's a couple of requests in here. Hey, are thoughts on more of a different forum outside of Facebook? And just not going to go into the weeds on this one, but yes, we're working on that as well. So there's going to be, different community options there for sure. And just speaking of the community stuff, there was a question about S&MP recipes. Is that included in what we're planning on doing with community stuff?
It absolutely is. And right now, that's where we started with the live sharing with the public link. And then that's the first community library that we're going to build, since a lot of those are already out there. And then we'll go from there.
Cool. That's kind of what I thought. I think at this point, it's a pretty good maybe section of this webinar to maybe transfer a little bit over to the Q&A. Do you guys feel comfortable doing that at this point?
Sure, yeah.
Cool. I thought it might be good. I saw, Troy, maybe you want to grab this one, the direction for using stuff like Power BI. There was a couple questions about that.
Oh, yeah. So Power BI I thought it was pretty exciting. We do some BI stuff internally and use tools like it and see the value in it. We tried publishing, I'll just give the whole story. We tried publishing in the Power BI App Center, a connector. And what we found was when you publish it in the App Center in a way that allows online refreshes cloud side, it doesn't let you modify any of the queries. It doesn't give you any of the power you need. Like, it gives you a one-click dashboard, but then it doesn't let you edit any underlying queries. Can't do any joins, can't modify it. You can just change like data types. It was light. So it felt like it wasn't going to meet the needs of this open-ended, powerful thing. And then we started working on a Power BI desktop file, a PBIX file, and gave that to some beta testers. And that seems to be going okay, but it's also like a really power user thing. Like, not everyone is comfortable getting in and writing SQL queries in a weird language that only Power BI uses. So I think it probably doesn't make it to prime time, but it may get officially supported to where we'll make sure a Power BI connection is possible and works. It's probably too geeky, power usery to make it to prime time.
Awesome. Thank you. couple other here. I wanted to grab this one from Sebastian. Can you talk a little bit about if we have any plans to offer additional payment integrations or different gateways there?
Oh yeah, I want this one. Little background. We started with Mercury back in the early days. Mercury payments. They were great. They were friendly. We had a set rate, and that worked for a while. Not to get into too much detail, but there's been some sales. There's Vantiv and WorldPay, and we hear the feedback on it most definitely loud and clear. Payment integrations are one of the more complicated things we can build. They touch the app in a bunch of different, very complex ways. You would think it would be like plugging, an authorized.net into your like e-commerce site on like WooCommerce or something, but it's not. It's one of the more complicated things we can do. And you probably know the industry is tough. There's a bunch of lawyers involved and people trying to make money at any cost, and it's tricky. So we want to get the right relationship in place that's going to be long-term, with the right agreement in place that has the right protections so this doesn't happen again. And that is a time-consuming process, and we're working on it. We get contacted every day by a credit card processor. We get a suggestion every day. Here's my favorite processor. Why don't you use them? They're willing to work with you. Like, of course they are. They're all willing to work with us, and everyone's got a favorite processor. We're evaluating very carefully to make sure it meets everyone's needs in as many regions as possible, because we're all over the place. We're all over the globe. So we've got a group working on this. Definitely are excited to solve that, pain point once and for all. And can't give timeline, but we are very excited about it.
Yeah, and just to add, we are acutely aware of everyone's most unfavorite providers as well. So we know what the questions are. We know what the answer is, and we're working toward it for sure.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Yes, thank you. Let's see. Chip is saying, I would love to see a little bit more functionality in the customer portal. IT glue style documentation for starters, but I would like a customer to be able to see what their subscriptions are without having to look at an invoice. Any updates in that direction?
I'll go. I'm in the mode of just being like super transparent with everybody. So stop me if I want, Crystal. The customer portal we built in the early repair shopper days, like 2011, was like advanced and forward thinking and great. And it's been a little stagnant for almost 10 years, maybe. I've seen other end customer solutions, like when I go to the dentist, their portal, or when I have the furnace service guy, we see all these things out in the marketplace. We see what the others are doing, and we see other experiences that do feel more modern than some of the stuff we have in the portal. And an initiative that I'm excited about is a big modernization pass on the portal. And it's not locked in on the roadmap right now. There's probably a version where there's little things we can do, like that suggestion of let people see their subscriptions. There's probably little things we can do, like put a logo on it. And there's probably deeper things we can do that make it feel more cutting edge. That's a bigger project. I can't talk about time frame on any of them. The way our roadmap is working is we've got big chunks of multi-month projects that are placed on the calendar, and then we fill in things as it's possible to fit based on what else is going on. And this is kind of in that category right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of speaking to that and roadmap and where things fit in, we definitely have a question about backups if you want to grab that one, Andy.
Andy's.
Yeah, sure. So this is my new baby. Yeah, so they're asking if we have any more information on backups. Yeah, so this one is delayed very, very slightly, probably a week or two, probably just a week, but in all honesty, I can't tell you with 100% certainty it'll go out this week or not. We just want to, this is one where we just went full bore from start to end, and I don't want anything unpolished at all going out with it. So if it's something where like we could deliver early next week, we'll probably just hold it to like the first week of January, because I don't want to release a major feature and have support, which probably will be unlimited, limited resources during the holiday. I'd rather be able to get everybody's questions and all of the backup developers specifically on staff ready to fix anything that we encounter. But yeah, we this is another one where we looked at what was in the industry, and there's a lot of third-party tools out there. And I'll be the first to admit there's some third-party tools out there that if you can successfully shoestring it together and then manually bill out for all those things, you probably could save some money by doing that. However, we set out to bring backups into a platform to the level of, I'd probably say SolarWinds, and I'm very honest about what I feel about competition if anybody ever wants to ask me. And SolarWinds is probably the best backup integration I've ever seen inside of an RMM platform. And a lot of that revolves around the fact that they purchased the backup product, so they were able to do things very, very deeply. And it's been around for years and years, and it's a very solid and good product, even though it is a bit more expensive than ours. We wanted to make sure that it was priced competitively. Ninja just rolled their own backup recently, and they're roughly the same price we are. I think their storage is probably twice as expensive as we are. And then Atera did like, this is another one that we looked at, and they did kind of like, we'll call it an integration, but it's essentially clicking a link and then you open up a Acronis portal and that's the integration. And they don't have license fees. I think they charge like 14 cents a gigabyte for local storage, and I think it's like 21 cents for cloud storage. And if you kind of do the math on that, or if you're doing hybrid backups where you're sending stuff to the cloud and sending stuff locally as well, it's not very realistic. So pricing aside, initially we're focusing on file and folder backups. That's kind of the meat of the bulk of backups that you can easily sell globally. Later on, we'll probably move into image-based backups and things of that nature. But I just want to stress the two things we focused on was that we want to make sure that all of this is easy to do. It's built in the platform, and it's not monotonous, meaning if I really go into detail on a specific asset with what I want to back up and what data I want to send to the cloud, what data I want to store to a local NAS or whatever it is, I want to be able to then take that and be like, yeah, I want the best parts of this going to every other asset on this customer. So I can even say like, hey, mimic my schedules over to these customers or over to these assets, mimic my file backups over to these assets. So everything is very easy to take it from point A and bulk do it to point B. And then the second component of that, and this is one that we probably spent more time than we should have, but I really fought for it, is I really wanted to take our billing system to another level, one that's just never been seen before. And we did that with backups. When I talked to a lot of MSPs back in my consulting days, I know there's like 4 million different ways that folks bill out for backups, and some of them are just crazy. And I set out to kind of support all of them. So if you want to say, hey, I'm just going to bill you at $10 a license, you can do it. If you want to bill out $10 a license after like an included 50, you can do that. You can take storage and bill out for cloud storage. You can bill out for cloud storage after you give global credits, after you give per asset credits. You can mix and match those any way you want. It's really kind of like your backup system. You can even brand it to the point where everywhere on the customer's PC, it's like my MSP backups. It's in the name of the file, add remove programs. It even has your logo. Like, we went to no end to make sure that this is your backup platform and it's one that you can grow with. And we're not doing anything funny with tiered pricing. We're very transparent about pricing. It's all upfront for you to just profit from the day that we post this. So we're super excited for it. We've had a lot of good feedback on it. We've had a lot of people waiting, and I do apologize because we did say mid-December and we're probably going to be a little bit later than that, which pains me when I see the sheer amount of people, asking for it. But anyhow, it's going to come out. It's as awesome as you would expect it to be. And we're super, super excited to have like a super deep backup integrated into our system.
Someone earlier asked about generally improving quality of features and mentioned maybe in the past some things have come out that had some issues. And here's a great example. We're definitely trying to have this come out without issues.
Yeah, and we've actually, this started probably a year ago, but we've been moving to a little bit more of a, I don't know the term. I'm sorry, Troy probably got this on the tip of his tongue, but we're moving away from like, hey, we want this feature, to more like, hey, how is this going to impact people down the road? So we're really trying to skip like what we would call a V1 and move like right into like a V2. So instead of saying like, yeah, you can do some stuff with backups as an example, you won't be able to do like the cool billing and the cool bulk importing, we'll do that later. We kind of said, you know what, let's take the extra time and just push that out in whole so it doesn't look that way, where when it releases, it's everything you wanted, and everything we bring from that point forward just makes it that much better, but it's beyond competent on day one.
Yeah. I forget the iron triangle of like time and resource and completeness, but as a young company trying to enter a crowded marketplace, we can either put a million devs on it and get everything done at once, or we can use the resources we have, go fast with some less than perfect things, or we can put out a couple perfect things and never get full coverage. So in our early days, we definitely did more of the let's get stuff out and see if people like it, and if people don't use it, we can put it to bed, or not have to waste all that time making something perfect that people aren't even going to use. And we're doing more of the, as we're growing and maturing, we're doing more of the let's make sure this is exactly what people want and nail it. And that's a reasonable evolution for us to go through, and you're seeing it.
And this is another reason that we don't like public roadmaps, because we're the kind of company that can change at the dime if needs change at a dime. Let's be honest, nobody expected COVID. This is crazy. And needs changed immediately. Like the need for remote work came out of nowhere. And now I wish I invested in Zoom like back in January. I'd be crazy rich. But anyhow, yeah, we're really focused on making sure that what we deliver is fully featured now. And I'm happy to take the blame. Every time we're like, oh yeah, we're leaking this because it's coming out this week and it doesn't, it's always because Andy blew scope, because somebody said something, I wanted it in the software before we showed it to you the first time. So I'm happy to take the blame on all of those.
Great. We'll just blame Andy. Awesome. A couple things I just wanted to mention as I go through the Q&A, just so everyone knows, we save these Q&As. There's a ton of feature requests in here, and we are looking through those. So I just didn't want you to think they were getting skipped over. In addition to that, I'm going to launch a poll here really quickly. But I thought that I saw a few. I know Troy was going to possibly grab. There's a question just asking about like, where is remote control going? Is there some updates there for us?
Yeah, I can give a less transparent update. We hear some people saying Syncro Live is great and works for them, and we definitely hear some people saying Syncro Live hasn't worked for them. And I'd say Q1 there should be a really great full response to that makes everybody have the solution they need. How was that?
That's great. And I think that works for me. Andy, you want to grab the question from Paco?
Yeah, so Paco, I like this question. He's asking if he's curious if there's anything that they can do as partners to support Syncro, just like we've kind of gone out of our way to help you folks during the pandemic and with feature requests, things of that nature. So yeah, and again, I just like say things like they are, and it's Troy and I, like, we live for just making cool stuff. Like, we love it, and we love making stuff that people want. The more people, and you know what, I'm sure there's probably a competitor on this webinar, and I'm just going to say this up front, I'm sorry, but we're growing by leaps and bounds at your expense. It's the way it is. And I would love it if you guys could take this, if you could take this and go tell other people about it. Go on G2, give us a 5-star review. Go on Capterra, give us a 5-star review. Like, people see that and it matters. And there's a ton of folks out there not realizing the value that you get with Syncro, with the unlimited assets, where you don't have to worry about putting it on a residential machine where you can go try to profit from that customer later. There's just so much value here. And I think that really drives why we're growing. And again, the more folks that you guys can get to even try our platform, it's just going to bring in more revenue. So me and Troy can make you more awesome stuff. Like that's the long and the short of it. So I appreciate the question, Paco.
to add to that, we're really here to build more software to make your lives better and easier. Honestly, the more clients we get, the more, people using our stuff, the more money we're investing in making more of the stuff you like. That's it. That's our mission. So, yeah, keep it
Absolutely. I was gonna grab this one just really quick, John. It's a very quick answer. And thank you. He says, I've been with Repair Shopper for 5 to 6 years, kind of doing the migration right now, thinking kind of hopping over into the MSP space, but probably will be a little bit hybrid. Yes, you can be a hybrid business in Synchro. We have a phenomenal migration path from Repair Shopper to Synchro. So please feel free. You can reach out to myself. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial. We'll offer a product tour, help you along the way there. So definitely great path there. I think it's interesting too, as I launch this poll, for those of you that are just checking us out for the first time, we do have a free 30-day trial. Also a very knowledgeable and low pressure sales team. So hop on a call with anyone. We'll walk you through the software as well if you've not seen it before, or if you're in an active trial. I thought this was an interesting question. It's directed straight to Troy. Have you ever regretted the per tech pricing? But
No,
you thought, sorry, that was
no.
an interesting question. All right. Okay. Let me just scan through here. Were there other, because we just hit an hour. So I just was going to see if there was any other questions we should grab here. I don't want to leave anyone hanging. And of course, like I said, we're monitoring the feature requests that we see here. And I definitely will be tracking those for sure. Brendan, I was just going to grab this one. There was a question, are you going to see multiple policies that can be applied to endpoints? Andy touched on that just briefly. We are looking at cascading policies, so we're definitely looking into that. I wanted to address Pete really quick, ability on restricting users to seeing financials. So we do have a very a granular security group setting option in your admin section where any user in Synchro, you can make sure you give them access to what you want them to see, edit, create, delete, or what you don't. So we got very granular there. So thought I would grab a few of those just functionality type questions. But other than that, like I said, if you had additional questions that we weren't able to get to, please reach out. It's just crystal@syncromsp.com. So happy to connect with you on that. But aside from that, I just want a sincere thank you for hanging out with us today. This was very fun. We love engaging with the community. And Andy, Troy, thank you so much for your time. We know how busy you are. So this was wonderful.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Hope everybody has a happy holiday and a super crazy profitable 2021.
All right. Thank you all. Bye.